Hello everyone and welcome to this mini album tutorial. I'm Christine and this is a brand ambassador project for Graphic 45. Today we will be making this 12-month mini album using the Flower Market collection. To begin creating the mini album cover, we're going to need 2 pieces of chipboard for the front and back covers. These measure 4 3/4 by 7 3/4. And then we are going to need 1 piece of chipboard that measures 1 3/4 by 4 3/4. To wrap my chipboard, I'm going to be using the purple Patterns and Solids paper. I cut 1 strip 5 3/4 inches by 12 inches. Then I cut the strip to measure 8 3/4 by 5 3/4. And then with this 3 1/4 inch piece left, I cut this to measure 4 5/8. So this is 4 5/8 by 3 1/4. Then I took a second piece measuring 12 inches by 5 3/4. Again, I cut 1 piece to measure 8 3/4 by 5 3/4. And I left this other piece 3 1/4 by 5 3/4. I'm going to use the patterned side of the paper for the outside of my album cover. So I'm going to turn this over to the solid side. I'm going to adhere this right into the center of the piece and I'm going to wrap my chipboard. I am only using regular tacky glue for this. You can use whatever adhesive you prefer, but make sure you do have a lot of adhesive on the piece so that it will be adhered well to this piece. We don't want it to have any puckers or warping or anything like that from not using enough adhesive. You can also use double-sided tape if you prefer. Just make sure that everything is adhered really well. And then we're going to take our second piece and we're going to do the same thing with this piece of chipboard. Next, I'm going to take my larger of my 2 pieces and my spine piece, and I'm going to add my spine right in the center. Now that I have my chipboard piece on my cardstock, I'm going to miter these corners, but whenever I cut them, I'm going to make sure that there is a little bit of paper past the corner. That way I can wrap that corner completely with the paper. Going to do that on the second piece as well. And next I'm going to wrap my edges. So I'm going to start with the short edge and fold my edges over. Then I'm going to use my bone folder just to make sure this is nice and tight and crisp on both sides. Then I'm going to just add my adhesive on this strip, making sure that it's entirely covered. But don't use too much glue because it'll start to seep out. Then we're just going to wrap this edge and burnish this down. And then I'm going to take my bone folder and in my corners, I'm going to just press this around that point so that the points are covered. So we're just going to shape it around slightly on all 4 corners. That's why we leave a little bit of extra past the corner so that that corner isn't sticking out and uncovered. Now, once I have my corners tucked in, I'm going to go ahead and fold these long edges And then I'm going to add my glue to my flap to close this up. So now we have the front cover, or the first cover, wrapped. We're going to repeat that same process with the second cover. For the spine piece, we are going to fold the short edges over first. Going to add adhesive to this folded over section. I'm going to fold over on the chipboard piece, and then for this piece, I'm going to push this in up against the edge and then smooth it down. So it's going to be slightly angled to cover that piece. Same thing here, I'm going to push this in to cover the edge and then flatten this down. Oh, got a little bit too much glue, it's coming out. All right, so now it is slightly angled. So if you can see these just slight angles, that's what we want. We're going to do the same thing with this bottom section. And I do have slight curves down. Then I'm going to fold over on both of these and burnish. I'm going to open these back up and I'm going to let this piece dry before we assemble the covers together. Next, we're going to take the spine piece, we're going to flip it over, and we are going to press our paper into the spine on this side to create a nice crease. And we're going to do this down both sides. This method of binding is called the lay flat method, or covering, I guess I should say. It's called the lay flat method, so it is a little bit different than the wrap method. So what will happen is these pieces will be flat up against where the chipboard is, and we're going to keep the piece this direction when we adhere the covers on. So I am going to make sure that my butterflies are in the same orientation. So I'm using this butterfly here just to line it up. It won't really be that big of a deal if they're not, but I would just prefer mine to match up. So I'm going to make sure it's in the correct orientation. And I am going to add my adhesive to this entire tab section here. I'm going to use the grid, just one of the horizontal lines on my mat, just to make sure that I have this lined up straight. But it should be pretty easy because your chipboard pieces are straight. And all I'm going to do is line up these edges, and I'm going to press down with my bone folder to adhere that tab. Going to turn this over. And then whenever this folds closed, I'll have that nice cover. I'm going to flip this over. Again, I'm going to make sure that my butterflies are in the same orientation. Then I'm going to add my adhesive to my tab. So now I have my covers. Both of them are attached. I'm going to flip this over, and I have my piece here that will cover the same size. So I'm going to place this here. I'm going to center this so that there's a small border on either side of the piece, because the pieces we're going to cut next for these covers are going to be the same size, and I want to make sure that it lines up nice and neat. So I'm just going to take this piece and I'm going to add adhesive to the entire back side of this section. For the inside covers, I have two pieces of pink Patterns and Solids. They measure 4 5/8 by 7 5/8. And I am going to adhere one here, making sure that I line it up with these edges, and then I will have a nice border and have a small border here. Same thing with the front side. Now I'm going to leave my covers to dry for a while before I bend these to create the actual cover piece. So I let my cover dry for a while, and now I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm just going to lightly run it in this crease. And then I'm going to flip my cover up, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now I have my spine piece, my covers lay perfectly flat, and I have my album ready to go. Next, we're going to work with our spine pieces. So I have my 2 1/4, 2 3/4, and 3 1/4 inch pieces. These are scored according to the scoring guide. And I'm going to go ahead and fold on my score lines. Now that I have my score lines folded in both directions, I have my first hinge piece. This will actually be the center. I'm going to have a 1/4 inch gusset between my pages because my pages are relatively flat. There's not a whole lot of bulk to them. I don't need a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to keep it at a 1/4 inch. Then I have this section here that's going to allow my pages to lay flatter whenever they're turned. And this is the section that my hinge or my page is going to hinge to. So I am going to take my scissors and I'm going to just slightly miter the corners of this outer piece only. So the outer 1/2 inch section from the score line down to the edge of the paper. I'm going to miter this so that whenever I take my page and I place this in my sleeve, the sleeve will stop. So it's easier to get into the sleeve, but then the sleeve will stop because this hinge is the exact same size as the sleeve itself. So I have my first hinge section and I'm going to place it this direction so that the pattern side is face up. I'm going to repeat that with these ones too. I'm going to just go ahead and score or fold on all the score lines, then I'll be back to show you how to put this together. So now I have all of my pieces that are scored and folded. I'm going to take my smallest piece, I'm going to flip it over to my back side. I've got my 1/4 inch gusset in the center. I'm going to take my adhesive and I'm going to apply it just to this 1/4 inch section. So this is called stack the deck binding. So we are going to stack these pieces on top of each other. I have already marked in the center the flat section of my second piece where a 1/4 inch is. So there is it's one piece right now that's 3/4 inch. So I have this now marked a 1/4 inch from each side. So you can see these marks. I'm going to line my piece up with the top and bottom edge and keep it in that 1/4 inch so that it is in the center of this piece. Once I have it in place, then I'm going to burnish this just so that it's adhered really well. I'm going to fold on that score line first, and then I'm going to flip over on this score line and burnish again. So now I have my tabs for 4 of my pages with a 1/4 inch gusset in between. Bringing in the third piece, I have in my center section marked a 1/4 inch from each side. I'm going to adhere this into the center, just like I did with the previous one. So now when I flip these up, I have all 6 of my tabs for my pages. And there are gussets between all of my hinges. And then I will also have room on my spine. If I bring this piece in, you'll see that my spine is actually bigger than this. So I will have a 1/4 inch on each side of my spine when it's closed. So there will be plenty of room in my book for my pages. So I have my center marked. I'm going to take my hinge piece and I'm going to place this here. And I have all of my hinges in and the pages are ready to be put on. So to put the page pieces on, we're going to take all of our pages out and we're just going to work with the little sleeves. Starting with the first sleeve, we're going to start on the first tab. This 1/2 inch section here is the only piece that we're going to be adding adhesive to. So the part that has the miter corners, we're not going to put anything in that second section. So I'm going to just add my adhesive right on this tab on both sides, but being careful that I do not add glue on that section below the score line. Then I'm going to open up my sleeve and I'm going to place my tab right in between. The sleeve will slide down right to the score line. Then I'm going to press this down so it's straight against that score line. I'm going to flip over and I'm going to burnish this on the back side. So now I have my first sleeve in my album. I'm going to repeat with the next one. Make sure that you do these in order. Be very careful so that you do not mix these up. I would hate for you to have made this entire album and then get to this part and put them in the wrong order. So now we have all of the sleeves in our album. So now you can go through one at a time and place your pages into your pockets. Next, we're going to move on to decorating the front cover. So I have 2 lengths of ribbon. I am using my Graphic 45 French Lilac, this trim here, and I have 2 pieces that measure 12 inches. I'm going to take the first piece and I'm going to glue about 1 inch of it on to the center. Here I have my center marked. And for this step, I'm going to be using Fabri-Tac because I think it holds better than regular tacky glue does whenever working with ribbons. I'm going to flip my book over. I have it marked already in the center. Now I'm going to turn this over. This is the back side. First, I'm going to trim off these strings. I have this butterfly from the die cut assortment, and I'm going to place this here, but I'm going to place it at an angle so that the wing covers the edges of my ribbon so that it doesn't fray. First, I have a piece of blue Patterns and Solids that's cut to 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I'm going to be using this journaling card as my main image, and it's going to go here in the center of this blue. But I'm going to be popping this up just a little bit on a piece of chipboard. So I have a piece of chipboard that's cut the same size as my card, and I'm going to adhere my chipboard onto my card. Now I have my card backed on my chipboard. I'm just going to place these down here so that I get an idea about where it's going to go. I'm going to center this so that I've got even segments along here and here. So now I have several of the die cut pieces from the ephemera assortment that I'm just going to place on here. So I have this butterfly. It's the same as the image on the card. I'm going to flip the wings up. This is actually going to be adhered here at the end so that my butterfly is dimensional. So I'm just going to shape and curve my piece now, knowing that I'm going to place this here. So now that I have a rough idea of where I'm going to place all of my things on my page, the first thing I am going to do actually is adhere the blue piece of paper. Then I'm going to set my card on top of it, and then I'm going to start gluing these things to my card or to the blue paper. Then I'll set my card down, and then I'll add the stuff on the top. The last thing that we need to finish the album is 2 of the small journaling cards. So I have selected these 2. And then I have taken 2 of these strips. I've actually taken the ones that have the flower piece on it, and it's got this little section. I've trimmed this, so I've taken 2 of them. I'm going to use the blue ones. I've trimmed the ruffled looking edge off of them. They're about 1/2 inch wide, and I'm going to use these on the inside of my album. So just to make sure that nothing smashes my butterfly, I'm going to rest my cover on my ink pad. This piece is cut to be the same dimension as this piece here. And I'm going to take my journaling card and place it in the center. So I'm going to adhere my horizontal strip in the center, and then I'm going to adhere my journaling card here in the center. And then these pieces, I'm going to do the same thing for the back cover. So this is what my back cover looks like completed. And now here is my front cover. So now the mini album is completely finished. We can go ahead and tie it closed. I hope you have enjoyed this Flower Market mini album tutorial. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Check out the Graphic 45 website at g45papers.com to pick up the Flower Market papers. This is a great way to show you how to use all the pieces of the collection in one fun and beautiful project. Thank you for watching and have a great day.